What up, Wolfpack? It's Brody with Adobe Dog Training. I'm gonna show you guys how to make a balanced raw meal for your dog on a budget. Everything you need. Oh yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
So we're here at a local supermarket in Texas. It's H-E-B. If you're from Texas, you know. So we're gonna go in, we're gonna get everything that we need to make these raw meals, and we're gonna show you how to do this all on a good budget. So when we come in the store, the first thing that we see is the vegetables, the fruits, all the produce and stuff. So what we're gonna grab first is our fruit, high in antioxidants. I love to get blueberries and strawberries, add some flavor, helps the dog's muscles recover, and it's a good source of fiber for the dogs as well. Next thing, I'm gonna grab some veg. I'm gonna grab some sweet potato, high in fiber for the dogs. You see it in a lot of common dog foods, so why not get it fresh? My rule of thumb is I like to get the ones that are a little bit longer shaped because they're easier to cut up. And one of the main reasons we start off with the fruits and vegetables, because this has to make up 10% of the overall diet of the dog. So we wanna make sure we get all of this stuff to be able to make a well-balanced meal for a dog. So although we're gonna be doing mostly a chicken recipe today, I do like to get the beef chili meat just because chicken doesn't have a lot of fat. Unlike humans, dogs get a lot of their energy from fat, not carbohydrates. So this is gonna give them that much needed energy boost, and you can also add something like coconut oil in to really give them that good healthy fat. So this is gonna be the main staple of the pretty much entire meal. What we're gonna get is our leg quarters, our chicken feet, our gizzards, our hearts, our liver. All of this stuff is gonna make a really balanced meal for the dogs. And the leg quarters specifically are the cheapest cut that you can get a big bag for. Unfortunately, they don't have the hearts in today, so we're gonna double down on gizzards to be able to make up for that organ meat. Inside your chicken paws, you get a lot of tendons, ligaments, bones, but be sure not to put too much bone. Too much bone can lead to constipation. So you really wanna have that balanced out with the appropriate amount of muscle meat. Make sure you always check your eggs. Eggs are gonna give really good aminos. They're gonna give you a little bit of calcium with the shell. Overall, just a super health food that you can give to your dogs. Oh, definitely. And we get a coupon. So we made a slight pivot with the fruit. We actually get more bang for our buck with the frozen ones versus the fresh. The only difference between them is these are typically the ones that are a little bit smaller or just not as showcase pretty as these. So gonna do the same exact thing, but we're gonna go ahead and pivot and switch to these instead. All right, so we got everything we need. We're about to go ahead and check out. And one of the most important things that you need to do is bite down on that subscription button, put a light paw on that like button, and check out the rest of the video. Because at the end of the video, we're gonna talk about the pros, the cons, how to transition your dog, and how much actual different meals we can get. That sounded weird. How many different meals we can get out of what we got here to be able to feed your dog. You that this is going to be feeding 2 Doberman pinchers, one about 60 pounds, one about 80 pounds. Yo, so we made it back to the crib. So we're gonna go ahead and break everything down and individually package each meal for each dog. So we're gonna start by cutting up the sweet potatoes. All right, so the hardest part is done, is just divvying up the potatoes. Everything else, you're pretty much just gonna be breaking it down into individual sections and then filling up the bags. I typically like to do bags just because you can get everything in there, see what's going on, and then you can kind of fold it and condense it down so it fits nicely into your freezer. So if you do have a dog that's a little picky with the fruits and vegetables, things of that nature, one of the things I like to do, you can put the vegetables in the blender, and then you can put some of the meat in the meat grinder, and then mix all of that together, so it makes it a lot harder for them to pick out the stuff that they want. Another option is you can get those fruits and veggies, put a little chicken broth or something like that on there, and it's gonna have that scent and that flavor that they're looking for, and that's really gonna entice them to eat those vegetables. All right, so next thing we're about to do is just break down our blueberries. So I just pour a good handful in. Remember, you want to try to get it as close to 10% as you can. I typically just eyeball this portion, but just breaking it down and putting it in each bag is gonna be your best bet. If you want to weigh things out, please do that, but also remember, before doing any of this stuff, talk to your local vet, talk to whoever it is that's responsible for your feeding and your meals for your dogs. Don't just take advice from a guy on the internet. That's really gonna make sure that your dog is gonna be healthy and transitions on this very well. Some dogs have chicken allergies, so make sure that this recipe is good for your dog. If not, we're gonna be doing a fish recipe soon and a venison recipe soon. All right, so we've actually divvied up everything, and we still have some blueberries left in this bag, and we have a whole extra bag. Even though we bought it, we can use it in the future, so just keep in mind that if you don't get 2 bags, you can really make it even cheaper. But these are freezer safe, so put them in the freezer. The next time you make meals, you can pop those right back into a bag and use them for the next one and cut cost again. Just throwing in these strawberries, making sure that we get those tasty flavors in there, getting those antioxidants in there for recovery. And remember that this is supposed to make up around 10 to 15% of the overall meal. Gotta get that fiber in. And as you can see, we still have about a good half bag of strawberries left. So just keep that in mind, that you're gonna have a lot of leftovers for your next meals. Now we're about to throw in our eggs for our chicken recipe. Lots of aminos, plenty of calcium on these shells, so I throw those right in there. You can either throw them in whole, or you can kind of crack them and throw them in so the flavor kind of gets all over the fruits and vegetables that you have in there. So we're about to go ahead and get into our chicken paws. A lot of tendons, ligaments, cartilage in there, bones. So this is really gonna balance out that 10% that we're looking for. Put one of those per bag. So now we're about to add in our stew meat. It's a pretty inexpensive cut of meat. We got it for 25% off, but we're really using this for the fats, because chicken doesn't have a whole lot of fat in it. So this is just gonna add a little bit of energy to that meal for my dog. We're gonna add our gizzards in now. Probably don't need all of the containers, but this is gonna give us our organ meat. We gotta add that liver in there. This is gonna be good for them. We need some secreting organs to be able to give them those micronutrients. So we're gonna open that up and break it down. And the whole reason we're here, the leg quarters, cheapest cut of meat that you can get, and it's gonna give you a lot. This is about a $6 for 10 pounds of quarters. So we pretty much put 1 quarter in each bag, but my dogs are spoiled, so I'm gonna put 2 in each. So what you'll typically see is that you have a lot of juice left in these bags. You can either pour it in each individual bag, you can pour it in a bowl and use it as like a drink, or what I like to do, I like to make pup cups. So I'll put these in like little small cups, put them in the freezer, and then whenever it's hot out, give it to my dog, and it's a tasty treat for them to cool down with. All right, so we just finished everything up, got everything separated, and we still have some leftover food from our raw meals, so we can put this in there next time, the fruits and veg in there next time. But we got 7 meals for each dog. So I have 2 dogs that eat raw, so if you have 1 dog, you just gave them about a half a month worth of food for the same price that you would actually pay for a bag of dog food. And it's gonna keep them alive longer, keep them healthy. And then after that, we gather it all up, throw it in the deep freeze. All right, so there you have it, guys, a complete raw meal guide to be able to get your dog to be a lot happier and healthier and more excited for mealtime. Now, one of the main things that you need to make sure of is that it's 3% of your dog's overall body weight to make sure to get all the calories that they need each day. Now we're gonna get into the pros and the cons of feeding dogs raw. So, The pros of feeding your dog raw. One, they're gonna get excited for the meal. I see a lot of dogs that get the food, look at it, and then walk off. When you start feeding your dog raw, they're gonna be really excited for mealtime. Another benefit is the health benefits. So one, healthier coats, less shedding, less dandruff. That's all good stuff just on the outside of the dog. On the inside, it's gonna help with the inflammation. It's gonna help them not eat so much processed stuff, because you have to think about it. Nobody wants to eat ramen and Captain Crunch every day. So when we give those raw meals, it's a lot of flavors, something to look forward to. Digestion wise, if we have dogs with sensitive stomachs, those highly processed foods don't really align with that. And they also have a lot of fillers. So digestion wise, your dog's gonna fart a lot less and your dog is going to poop a lot less. And I'm talking about the quantity and how often. With raw feeding, you're gonna get like maybe 20% of what you were getting out of the kibble variety of poop. So that's less picking up, less cleaning, and overall less walks that you have to take your dog on to empty them out. So that's always gonna be a good thing. An additional pro is the mental stimulation that you get from feeding your dog raw. For me, I like to feed my dogs their raw frozen, so that way they have to chew it and manipulate it to a way that they can get the best bite out of it. But also it's just gonna give them the opportunity to slow down when they eat. So that's a big additional pro from feeding your dog raw. And the last thing, honestly, is just knowing what's going into your dog's food. Not having to trust that they put everything that's on there. You know what's going on because you hand-picked it, so that's always gonna give me a better peace of mind. All right, so now we're gonna get into the cons of feeding raw. One of the biggest cons is the price point. And with this budget, we're gonna be cutting one of those cons out. The getting it done for you, getting everything made for you, it's time consuming for the people who produce it. So that's why the price is sky high. And it's very hard to keep your dog consistently on that for a budget. So that's one of the downsides. Another downside of it is, well, if you do it yourself, you can save a lot of money, but that also comes with having to clean it up, having to go pick the food up. Now for me, I always grocery shop because I meal prep for myself, so it's nothing to grab a little bit of extra food for my dogs in the process. So try to schedule your raw meals with your family's meals. It just makes it a much easier transition. Having to do your own research is another con. Having to figure out what your dog needs, having to talk to your vet. Make sure that you guys get all the information you need to be able to give your dog a healthy, balanced meal. Seen a lot of people that try to feed raw and they just put ground beef in there. That's not a balanced meal. So do your research and understand what you're going in there for. You want that 70% muscle, 10% bone, 10% organs and secrety organs, and 10% veggies. So that's gonna give you that full 100%. And I would say the last and final con of feeding your dog raw is training with raw, because it makes it a little bit more difficult. It's not as portable, it's not as easy to break down. So what I would say is try to find something like a freeze-dried raw to train with. It can be pricey, but typically when your dogs are eating raw, they don't want to go back to the Captain Crunch, so it makes it a little bit harder for them. So try to use your fresh pack, cut it up into small pieces, freeze it so it's a little bit more malleable to be able to use for training. Bill Jack is one of my favorite ones to break down and use, or just get that freeze-dried stuff. That's really gonna help you be able to manipulate certain behaviors to be able to train when feeding your dog. Final thing that you have to do is transition your dog for raw. So you don't wanna just say, hey, I fed my dog kibble this morning and then just start feeding them raw, because the dog's system is very rudimentary. It struggles with change. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you give your dog an extra scoop of food, then they have diarrhea. So what I like to do is completely empty out my dog. Trust me, your dog is going to live. You don't have to feed them every single day. What I want to do is give them 24 hours to 48 hours to completely clean out that system. And then what I'm gonna do is give them a little bit of raw at a time. Maybe some fruits, some vegetables, and little small portions of meat. If you have a very sensitive or picky dog, you can go ahead and kind of lightly cook it, boil it, and then transition them into the raw. What you're gonna notice is there's a lot more water content in your raw meals. So if you try to go straight in that transition, you're going to have a dog that's used to taking out a certain amount of water from that kibble. and then you're gonna put all that water that's in your raw, and you're gonna have some soupy poopies, and you're gonna have some soupy poopies, and you're gonna have some soupy poopies. Nobody wants that. But gradually over time, make that transition. And then one of the things to look out for, if you're feeding too much bone, you'll see that the stool is a little bit white. That means there's too much bone in there. Try to cut back on that. You should have a nice little firm, taut nugget, but that should essentially be it. If you're one of the few people that made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you. And I hope this helps you on your transition to raw journey. And if you can do me a huge solid, drop a like, subscribe, forward this video to somebody else, try to help us get our dogs to be healthier. So let me know what kind of content you guys want to see next in the comments below. We're going to be doing a raw video on fish and doing a raw video on venison, but drop something in the comments. Brody out.